Hey everyone, what's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. By popular demand of the comments, I'm gonna make a live play 3-tabling PLO video. I know this isn't what most of you guys are looking for. I think most of my audience is a hold'em audience, but there are a few PLO guys out there, so please, in respect to them and so I can keep making these, hit like and subscribe for the algo, even if you're not gonna watch too much of the video. I don't make too many of these, but I think some people really appreciate them, and yeah, I'll give a bit of a hold'em perspective on PLO, so we'll make this a bit of a primer for how to think about PLO. For even those of you guys who don't know how to think about it, I'd say a really key part of thinking about PLO, in my eyes, is thinking of hands as having components. So whereas in hold'em, we'd look at my 7, 8, 10 jack, and we'd say, I have a straight, I have the nut straight. It's a good hand, by the way, and of course I'm gonna bet it. In PLO, we'd say I have a straight end, right? So here I have top set and always it's gonna be what do you have and what else do you have along with it? And that's because there are a lot of different ways for me to have a straight. I can have a straight with one backdoor flush draw, with two backdoor flush draw, with a pair, with two pair. There are a lot of different types of each hand I can have, so a straight is only one component. Then we can start asking the question of which straights do I want to do what with, right? Here's a cool board because deuce 3-3 rarely get played, just I can hold them, so it's a very, very bricky board. But in PLO, blocker effects are more of a thing, so the fact that I have no hearts in my hand is fairly bad. It's fairly bad for my reasons to throw in bets. So I'm just gonna make a sizing presumably that fits my ace-king, and in PLO you'll see that compared to hold'em, it's just way easier to make good hands. So the threshold for how much money each hand is worth is very different. And here I have a 10 high flush plus an open ender, but we'll call it blockers to an open ender. Whereas I can have a 10 high flush plus a pair. And then if we think which flushes do I check back and which do I bet, I think a flush with a pair would be more likely to check. It has more stable equity. It's harder to get drawn out on. Whereas a flush with no pair would be more likely to bet. It's easier for your opponent to continue. You appreciate the protection more, etc. Here we have got shot 3 over cards, not flush draw. Feels like it's actually close. So the way I think about these is the center of my 3-bet range is always going to be aces. And so I hope I get the third table going soon. But yeah, this is all right. So I always think how good or bad is the board for pocket aces. And the 4-5 being there means that if I have a deuce or 3 with my aces, I have extra equity. So 4-5-9 is very different from like 4-6-9. This is actually not that bad of a board. Now my aces are gonna split into 2, and I think really this hand just wants to be betting. With 3 high diamonds, it's gonna be difficult to get too much betting from the other guy. I think I severely limit his ability to have a flush that's gonna put in multiple bets, or a flush blocker that's gonna put in multiple bets. I don't know, this might be a fold. I'm not actually sure. I'm not very good at pre-flop. So I think he's just more likely to have something like a set or a low flush, and so I would rather bet myself than check, because if I check call, he's not necessarily firing the river with his hand. But I'm not sure that's a correct thought process at all. It's just my thought process there. Here versus a min raise, I assume we continue kind of wide, and again, this is ace-king, but it's ace-king 7 deuce with a suit, right? So multiple components. I think most hands with ace-king and a nut suit are good enough to stack off 16 big blinds. So I'll go with this one. I'm adding some tables on the side meanwhile, just in case we manage to sneak into a 5-10 or 10-20 table. Here with a low SPR, basically flopping anything, we just go with it. The way PLO works is you're way more interested in protection than you might be used to from hold'em, so there's much less this hand only wants a small pot, or let's bet 3 big blinds. It's more with low SPRs, you either stick your stack in or you fold. There's not too much in between. And here this is trashy jacks, right? Like you can have good jacks and bad jacks, good aces and bad aces. Every hand has this range, which is really, really important to differentiate, because trashy jacks, what's this hand drawing to? It can make a set plus generally nothing. It can make an overpair plus generally not much, right? It would be a pair of jacks plus a jack high flush draw at best. Can make an open ender, but it's drawing very weak, whereas something like jack 10-9 double suited is drawing to much better draws. It's more likely to make a flush draw, maybe ace jack king, or you might make high flush draws. So basic stuff, I guess, but for hold'em audience, just to look at each hand as the components. So this has pocket fours. It has 4-5, it has 9-5 suited, so there is one playable hold'em component, right? The pocket fours. But we need a 4-card hand. PLO, you get 4 cards, so hands where not all 4 of your cards are playing are not very good hands, generally speaking. Okay. We're gonna get another table soon, so I can see it coming. We're first on the wait list for one. If we go back to this hand, it looks like I 3-bet, and you can ask yourself, do I want to 3-bet all of my ace, king, queen deuce? Only with a nut suit, then triple suit becomes less good. So rather than use an RNG like you do in hold'em, you have these different qualities for each hand that let you basically pick based on the hand properties. So the hand is doing the randomizing for you. And so PLO is in a way a much more technical game in terms of which bucket which hand goes into. Of course, that's not generally how I play it, but you guys know me. I'm taking some shortcuts here and there with how to do these things. But yeah, looks like, did we find a table? At least one table. Okay, gonna have some more action. If this guy plays us, premium hand, but the fact it's premium doesn't mean it's necessarily gonna 4-bet. Actually, like I said, I'm not the best at pre-flop. So here, what are our components? We have a nut flush draw plus a gutshot, right? So relatively strong nut flush draw. If I also had a pair to go along with it, I'd probably check raise. Without the pair, I'm less sure, because I run into more bet 3-bets, which would be terrible for me. So I get to kind of just realize my equity, and it's going to be, good enough to realize equity on any turn. Again, by just check calling, we can think about which rivers, if any, we want to donk bet. This is probably marginal open. It's not the best river to donk bet. So this is kind of a hold'em pattern. But when you have absolutely nothing and the river does shift things a bit, betting small generally outperforms checking. Just for the times he folds there, I'm not sure it's the same in PLO. We're gonna call. Generally, anything that plays okay against aces is gonna call a 3-bet. Here, what do we have? So we have middle set on a board with a straight, but it's not just any middle set, it's middle set plus a gut shot. So whereas middle set plus nothing, we would check. This gets, let's say, closer. So let's start out with a bet. Of course, with a heart, it would be even better, and I wouldn't be shocked if no heart, you just don't bet this hand. I think having a heart is a significant component to the hand. 4 on the turn. Now it's important to note we are losing to 8-5 on the flop. We now lose to 5-3. Those are not big parts of the range, but this hand isn't pushing a ton of equity, so I don't see any big reason to bet it on the turn. I'll check it back. If he bets, this is a bluff catcher, but if he checks, I think we could potentially value bet this. So it could go both ways. Ten is kind of a reasonable 10-8 blocker, but he check raised 10-8 quite often, so I'm not sure it's too relevant. Let's say his value range is roughly around 8-5. and would probably bet 8-5, maybe bet 9s. So we'll throw in a bet with this hand. This is what we call a thin value bet, and I'll turn this hand into a bluff. Has nice blockers, and I don't think it's winning a showdown. Okay, lose to 9s. Makes sense. Here, I think just fire away with the 6-7. And we get snapped by ace, ace, 9, 3. And so in terms of note taking, we just note that the guy's a station. I don't think that hand has particularly good properties, or the spot has particularly good properties for him to snap that off there. So yeah, just important to recognize. Here, how good is the board for aces? Not too good. How good is it for our range? Well, we have more high card hands than he does, and more coordinated hands. So we probably get to bet not full range, but sometimes. And this hand, I think, would be a bit tough check calling, so I'll start out with a bet. A turn, again, probably better for our opponent's range, and this hand is now strong enough to try showing down. We'll try to do that. Here we only beat a bluff. And here, given we bet third, let's see. We beat... Don't beat too much. Yeah, any hand with an 8 now beats us. I'll just let this one go, and we will let this one go. So yeah, where the value thresholds lie, we said of course we'd never fold 2-pair and hold them PLO much closer. This might be a bit loose. And here the ace is good for me, the 3-4 not too much. But given we're 4-way, removal plays a big part. So not having an ace makes it way more likely everyone else has an ace. And I think there's no big reason to start out with a bet here. Starting out, you might think I'm the only one who can have aces, and so maybe that's a big reason to bet, but I don't think it's a huge reason. I have not studied check raising enough, but seems like a reasonable a hand as any to check raise bluff. Kind of good turn for my hand, but I get a feeling if I pile in a lot more money myself, I narrow him down to the point where my king is no longer good. So I'll put this in the checking range. And when nobody bets again, I think it's reasonable to consider bluffing if we had a real hand, but we don't. And this actually looks like a nice check raise river bluff, blocking the top of his range there. So had he bet, we could consider and check raising to rep a boat. Here, paired board, I think most hands mix it up. You can't bet everything. So check some 7s, you check some jacks, you bet some jacks, etc. And then which jacks do I want to bet or check? This looks like a jacks to bet because it needs more protection, whereas if I have jack, jack, king, queen, that's more of a check, I would imagine. And then facing a check raise, do you just continue all the jacks? Because this is the very worst pocket jacks. But I wouldn't be shocked if you do, just because you have 2 outs to the nuts and you beat his bluff. So I will continue on the flop and look to probably fold turns. And here on the turn, I'd continue, say, jacks with a 6, jacks with some kind of draw, but not jacks with nothing. This is probably close. I might be being way too loose. I think I play games with much lower rake usually. And this I fold because it does terribly versus aces. Right, with aces, if your opponent has aces, his hand can't really hit very much. We'll wrap up here. Let me know what you think. I know this isn't the usual content, and I will see you guys next time.